Welcome to the tutorial for this stunning crocheted clutch. She's absolutely adorable. You'll need a bag bottom, a clasp, about 200 grams of yarn, a 3mm and 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a needle. Here are the dimensions of my clasp, and here are the dimensions of my bag bottom. There are 52 holes, but we want 60 loops, so I'll show you how to do that. We are going to increase here, 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 and here on both sides. I'm just going to start with my 3mm hook. I'm going to pull that through. Pull up a loop and chain one. And I'm going to keep the tail underneath where I'm working. So I'm going to go in the next hole, pull up a loop, bring it through both. And here we're increasing. So we're going to do one single crochet and go in the same hole and do another single crochet. I'm going to go into the next one, single crochet, and then in this one we're increasing, so we're going to do 2 single crochets. And I'm just going to do that all the way around. Okay, so I went all the way around and into my last hole. Now I'm going to go into where we chained one and just do a slip knot. If you count, you should have 60 loops. And now we're going to switch over to our 6mm hook. So we're going to go right under here and we're just going to single crochet all the way around. You crochet in single rounds until you have the height that you want your bag to be. I usually do anywhere between 10 to 15 rows. Once you've done a few rows, it's going to kind of curl inward and we want to make sure that we push it all outward. So just push on the bottom knots to flip it outward. And then you can continue working like this. You also need to make sure that you keep a good tension, because if it's too tight, your bag's going to curl inward like this. So it's not too tight and it's not too loose and it easily pulls through, but it's not like that's like way too loose. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I did about 12 rows. This is what it's looking like. Now we're going to work on adding the clasps. We're going to open it up. I'm going to use a separate ball of yarn because we need to wrap the clasp first, and I want to keep the one that's on the bag attached to it. So I'm going to leave that. I'm going to take some crazy glue and put a little dot there. And then I'm going to lay the yarn flat and wrap this around to secure that there. This part is like super annoying, I'm not going to lie. You have to keep you just keep wrapping this around, and ideally you keep the yarn flat, but sometimes it curls up and I just give up and I just wrap it curled. But it is easier and uses less yarn when you keep it flat. So just keep wrapping that around. Try not to put too much tension, because if you put less tension then it'll stay flat. Once you do half, just cut that off. Okay, I'm going to add a little more glue. Okay. And I'm just going to keep wrapping that. I'm going to use my 3mm hook to help me tie knots. And do the same thing on the other side. It's all wrapped. Set that off to the side. Grab your stitch markers and your bag. Squish it in half and find the middle points. And then place your stitch marker in the stitch that's like in the center. You're going to want to kind of mold your bag into like more of a square shape. So what we want to do is mark where we're going to have the holes for our hands. If your hand's like there, you're just going to want to go like a little bit in from the corners. So just mark one of them. And then I just count from here to here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then I do 11 from here, here, and here. So they're all kind of the same spots. This is what we're working with. Just make sure everything looks like even. If anything looks off to you, you can just fix it. I'm going to grab 2 scrap pieces and I'm going to put them through where I put my stitch markers. I'm just going to tie my clasp here just so it stays in place. Same thing over here. If you want to use a different color yarn for this, go ahead. It might make it easier. Okay, make sure your clasp is going to close inward and not like that. Go back to where you left off and just continue ignoring the clasp for now until you get to where the stitch marker is. Don't do one in there. And I guess you can do this before you put the clasp on. Now we're going to start crocheting over the clasp. So it's kind of confusing. Hopefully you can just watch. You're going to go through where the stitch marker is. Your yarn is over your clasp right now. You're going to hook that on and pull it under. Give yourself a little room and then just do a single crochet. So keep your yarn over your clasp and you just keep going underneath. So you go into the next hole, pull it over, and you just keep doing that. Ignore the string that we use to tie it on. We can just pull it out after. Keep doing that until you get to the stitch marker. So once you get to the stitch marker, you're going to ignore this. And we're just going to go under the clasp and crochet as normal. Since there are 11 in between here, I'm going to crochet about 11 or 12 in here. So just going around the clasp right now. Okay, so we made it back to the stitch marker. We're not putting one in there. We're going to go into the next one. We're just back to crocheting through the bag and over the clasp. And we're just going to do the same thing on the other side. When you're passing through here, just try and keep the stitch marker lined up with the middle of the clasp, just to keep everything even. Okay, and on the other side, we're back at the stitch marker. So again, we're going to skip the bag and just go over the clasp. Made it to the other stitch marker, so we're going back through the bag. And I'll meet you back over here. So I went through the last one. Now I'm back to the first one, and I'm just going to do a slip stitch. I'm going to leave a tail and just cut that off. I'm going to chain 1 and pull it through. And I'm just going to weave in my ends. Don't forget to untie these. I just kind of pull them out. Okay, I weave in ends with a needle. You can use a hook if you want. I'm just going to pull that string through the hook. And I'm going to go through loops and try and get it to the center of the bag underneath the clasp. So I'm coming through the front. So you want to weave inside the bag. And I literally just go through trying to keep it like not visible. I'm going to do it a few times. Cut it. And then stretch out and it kind of just disappears in there. And that's the bag all complete. You can close it up, kind of mess with it and shape it. That's it. So cute. Absolutely love. Very spacious. I hope it was helpful. Bye.